it's time to start connecting some of our slabs together. So we have a leather hard slabs. I have a pile of them right here to my left that have been drying since last evening. I threw them out about let's see, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Stacked them in newspaper in between, and then around 2 o'clock today I uncovered them and laid them out on the table because they were still a little bit too soft. And by soft I mean I couldn't hold them like this and they stayed rigid. You know, this is what we're looking for with a leather hard slab of clay. So the first thing I need to do is start cutting them out. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. You know, if you try to do this before your slabs are leather hard, you're going to get a very sloppy cube, and that's not what we're looking for. So again, now I had, you know, just incised the line where the slabs were going to be cut out, and now I can actually cut these out. And since the clay isn't as soft, they're not going to disform. And all these bits can just go inside the reclaimed barrel. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, your goal is going to be end up having 6 of these sides and making a 6 inch by 6 inch by 6 inch cube. Today I'm going to put 3 of these slides together, so then you'll just have to replicate that with 3 more afterwards. So we want to think about a couple of things as we're putting these together. If I just stack these like this, I'm going to run into some problems. So we can see here I have some overhang. So this slab is already too long, and also this side is going to be, this side where the slab is sitting edge to edge is going to be 6 inches by 6 inches across, but now it won't be 6 inches up and down. Up and down it's got an extra 1/4 of an inch and then an extra 1/4 of an inch for the slab on top. It's going to be over about 6.5 inches tall, so it's no longer going to be a cube. So lucky for us, also attaching slabs just on top of themselves like this with these big flat seams isn't very conducive for good construction. So we don't want to do it this way. This will cause a cracking and just an uneven slab, or an uneven cube, excuse me. So what I want to do is I want to think about all of these seams as 2 45-degree angles. So I'm going to bevel all of these so that I can create them, when I put them together, you know, there's going to be a seam right on the axis rather than this sort of blockness happening. So when I try and cut a 45-degree angle on here, it doesn't need to be really specific because there's going to be some backfilling of clay that can help with that. So I can cut this out with a knife, or again, like before when I was trying to smooth things out, I can use a Surform. For me, I prefer to use the Surform. Just because it can take off clay in a much easier, smoother transition than cutting it with a knife. Oftentimes the knife isn't going to want to cut very evenly, but the Surform is just going to do a really nice job of just slowly shredding the clay off, so I don't end up taking off too much by mistake. And again, if you haven't gotten a Surform yet, they're over at the hardware store. Sometimes they're at the bookstore. I can't confirm that for this semester though. So I've got this one all beveled up. I usually will just go ahead and bevel them all at once, just to get rid of all the mess at once. And it makes it easier to attach, or easier to bevel these when they're independent like this. Whereas if I attached one side beveled and then had to bevel the rest of the side, it wouldn't work as well. So this is all going to go in the reclaim. So I'm ready to start attaching my slabs together. So one thing I have to think about when I do this, is to make sure that they're being attached really well. When we were attaching with our coils, it was very soft, malleable clay, so we didn't have to, we could just kind of pinch it together, compress it together, and it worked out pretty well. Where these are both leather hard, it's not going to work as well. We can see now, this is the idea of how we want this to match up. So we want to create a 45-degree angle by cutting off that 45-degree bevel. Actually, I take that back. That's a 90-degree angle. So 2 45s equal a 90. And then as we stack these around, we're going to maintain 6 inches on all sides. And this is going to be a much stronger joint than if we just stack them on straight. So I have to make sure that I do a good job of putting water down and scoring these before I try to attach them. Since I have 3 slabs here, I'm going to attach, we're going to call this one the base, and then I'm going to attach these other 2 together as 2 of the sidewalls. Because if I try and just attach one sticking up in the air, sometimes that can want to fall over. But if I have 2 together and can make a corner, it's going to be more self-supportive. And if you found frustration in letting coils dry or getting coils to be the right stiffness to be able to do things, these leather hard slabs can be really nice to build with because they're so stiff. You just kind of have to they're just really easy to work with as long as you have a plan going into it. Because since they've lost so much moisture, they're very rigid and aren't going to fall on you, potentially. As you can see, these don't have any bend to them. They're also, I don't know how well the camera picks it up, but they're a really consistent shade of dark gray still. If these have started to go kind of white or light gray on any edges, it's going to make them really difficult to work with. So you want to be careful that they're leather hard but not much past that. If you're getting into bone dry, you might as well just make new slabs. I'm just going to dab some water on here. And now I can just squeeze these together. This outside edge here is always going to look bad to begin with. It's just going to take some time. I'm going to grab one of my ribs. And again, like anything we've talked about so far, compressing this seam is really important. Make sure this is really stuck in all these sides. I have to deal with this inside seam. And so I want to go ahead and I'm going to put some more water down. And what I like to do, once I find a trimming tool, so here in a second I'm going to reinforce these walls with a coil. But what I like to do before that is to make sure that I get a really good connection point. So before I score inside of here, I'm actually going to dig some of this clay out. Like so. And then up here on top as well. And so what this has done is given me a much bigger footprint to get clay inside of for this seam, so I can really score and really compress a lot of clay in there. You know, one nice thing about working with leather hard slabs is that the slabs are really strong, really resilient. But the downside of it is that they don't want to stick together because they're dried out a little bit, or that they're at that drier point. So we have to work extra hard to make sure that they don't come apart. So I'm going to take some little coils and press them down really firmly into that seam. Since I'm pressing firmly, I'm making sure that my opposite hand is supporting on the outside, so I don't push too far and make these want to not stick together. Here's this vertical seam. And then similar to the coils, I'm just going to go ahead and score this coil on top. And this is just really, again, going to make blending it in much easier, much stronger. And so obviously doing that is opened up the outside a little bit. So if it's really bad, I can come in with a little bit of water in my scoring rib and help score those together. I'm not as concerned with adding a coil on the outside since that edge is so small. Generally, just compressing it really well at the rib is enough to take care of it. But you might find that you have to maybe work a little clay in there if for some reason it's not fitting well. Okay. So right now I've connected 3 of the slabs, and so you obviously want to have 3 more slabs ready to go to attach the rest of the sides. As this dries, you know, right now these edges are fairly wet. You know, they're not soft wet, but they are wet enough to where you were just doing things to them. As you can see, probably, who knows how the video is interpreting it, but the edges aren't necessarily as crisp as they need to be. So once I get all of these attached, all these other sides attached, it's much easier to clean up these sides. You know, I can tap it with a paddle because of how it's compressing on the inside. There's a little bit of bulge on this side I can feel, and I can just tap that down. I'm looking, but I don't see a paddle. You know, I'll just be able to tap this a little bit to make sure that that's nice and flush and even. And I can also, again, come back with this Sureform if I want to create a really hard, sharp edge here. Okay. And again, that's a little soft right now because I just added it all together. And since I don't have the support of these other pieces, it's still kind of wobbly. So you'll want to make sure to not really, you know, refine this as much until you have them all added on, just because similar to when we were trying to compress coils, you know, until there's a strength to it, a stiffness to it, the whole thing's not going to work together. But this is the beginning of our 6x6 cube. So I've got, again, I would have made all 6 of these at once, so they're at the same dryness now. And then just go ahead and attach all these together. You know, per the assignment page on the blackboard, hopefully you've looked at that by now. You know, we're supposed to take this 6x6 cube that is as even as possible, as straight and rigid as possible, and then add more to it to make it interesting. And kind of what that means is dictated by your imagination, your creativity. I did upload some examples. There are some good examples, and there are what probably aren't as good of examples. So it's kind of just to give you an idea of what's been done and how you might be able to, improve on those ideas, make these ideas your own. Like right now you'll see some where it's just the flat cube sitting on the table. And then there's some that are suspended or up in the air around on different angles and things like that that might be more interesting. So, what you do to it, you can add, narrative structure. It can be based on just design or geometry, or adding organics to this really geometric shape. Kind of the sky's the limit, and the opportunities are up to you. It's just how you can interpret this and make it the most interesting, best project for yourself. And I think that's it for the moment.